Hello! Here on this very steep slope was hard to place camera grows the Japanese tree ferns. So in Japan the only one species of tree ferns is more or less widespread. It grows mostly on the Kyushu island and of course here in Yakushima island, which is just south of Kyushu in a very warm subtropical, almost tropical forest. Some very isolated populations of Cyathea even grow on the Honshu, but they're really hard to find. Anyway, Cyathea spinulosa is a typical tree fern. So magnificent, large tree fern. There are only two big plants around, but many small plants. And name spinulosa, so just some spine. When I walk it here in the shots, I developed a very simple rule to how to distinguish very frequent fern Diplasium, which grows not far away, and also Pteris wallichiana from Cyathea. If it's prickly, if it's damaged your skin, this is likely Cyathea. If not, it's probably Diplasium or Pteris. So Cyatheas are tree ferns, and tree ferns are very magnificent creations of nature, but very restricted in ecology and distribution. They typically indicate extremely wet environments. Reason is simple. Stem of tree fern is unprotected. It does not have any bark which allow plant to make transpiration lower. Transpiration from stems of tree fern is unfortunately high, and that will restrict growing of tree ferns to the very wet tropical regions. So actually when you see tree ferns in the open ground, you can easily say, well, I am in a place where humidity is quite typically around 80–90%, and I can feel it in the air. It's very humid forest here. Another thing which I like to tell is the general thing about spore plants. Here on Yakushima, there are very many ferns, so forest is just filled with many frequent or rare species of ferns, and south of Kyushu in general is a kingdom of ferns. But if you go north, the amount of fern species will steadily decrease, and generally in whole northern hemisphere, the northern you go, the less number of spore plants will be present. So what is the main reason? Well, I think the main reason is that life cycle of spore plants requires more time than life cycle of flowering plants. So that will make them only go working well in environments where the season is relatively long. If season is short, these guys simply don't have enough time to make the life cycle working. So they need to distribute spores, they need to wait until fertilization will come on Protelia, then young plants should gain some size until the season will go to the bad one. So that is impossible in northern regions. Also, northern climates are relatively new. In the Earth's history, this typical Arctic climate is of recent origin, but I don't think it's a real big problem because these guys are of Carboniferous origin, and from that time on Earth there were multiple climates, very cold and Arctic, and they survived them quite well. So the reason, I think, is the length of the warm season and relatively long life cycle of tree ferns. When I see tree ferns, I also have multiple other thoughts. So tree ferns, if they develop that bark, they might dominate forests, but not they don't. And you see the dominating tree here is still typical Cryptomeria, the conifer, the plant with the bark and with seed. So what is the real advantage of this Cryptomerias over the tree fern, except for the bark and some probably sporic distribution which is present in fern? The most important thing which I continue to repeat is the birth control. So seed plants have a good mechanism of understanding, of controlling how big will be the number of the offspring. Whereas ferns, they have absolutely no idea what will happen with spawns and protelia. This uncontrolled life cycle is relatively good for ferns of small or medium size, but is inappropriate for plants which grow for years and years. The giants of plant world need some more control because they don't exist in big numbers, and any deviation from the controlled number of offspring will simply kill the population. So here tree ferns are more or less successful, heading all around the forest, so I feel them quite well in my legs, and I hope that tree ferns on Yakushima is a normal component of the plant environment. So these are tree ferns on Yakushima, and today is September 21st. Thank you.